Number 7. Volcano, the oil boom town that literally burned to the ground. Let's start with one that breaks the coal mold completely. Volcano, West Virginia, straddling Wood and Ritchie counties, was never about coal. It was all black gold, oil. Back in 1864, just after the Civil War, the Volcanic Oil and Gas Company bought up 2,000 acres in a promising oil field. By the late 1860s, the town had exploded. Derricks rose everywhere. Wooden tanks, boarding houses, hotels, stores, even 2 newspapers, the Volcano Lubricator and the Walking Beam, kept the presses rolling day and night. Population estimates put it at several thousand, with some sources saying it hit nearly 4,000 at peak. This was wildcat country at its rawest. Roughnecks and speculators flooded in. Saloons outnumbered groceries in some accounts. Oil flowed so freely that flares lit the night sky like miniature volcanoes. That's how the town got its name. They built the Laurel Fork and Sand Hill Railroad, the first narrow-gauge line in West Virginia, just to haul the crude to the B&O network. Between 1864 and 1879, they pumped an estimated 2.5 million barrels. Fortunes were made overnight. But prosperity built on wood and flammable crude is dangerous. On August 4, 1879, at 4 a.m., fire broke out in a downtown dry goods store. The New York Times reported 2 prior arson attempts, so watchmen had been posted. Still, the blaze spread with terrifying speed. The entire town was wooden. The ground was soaked in oil. Tanks burst. Burning crude ran through the streets like rivers of fire, igniting everything in its path. Businesses destroyed included Graham and Smith's store, the Nicolai Hotel, the U.S. Post Office, Bell's Stable, 3 derricks, boiler works, 9 tanks, and both newspaper offices. The fire wasn't the only killer. Oil production had already started declining. A pipeline soon replaced the short-line railroad entirely. Volcano was never rebuilt. Today, if you head into the woods near Mountwood Park, you can still find stone foundations, rusted pipes, and patches of ground that ooze oil when it rains. The park even holds an annual Volcano Days festival to teach kids about this short-lived oil rush. Volcano wasn't slowly abandoned. It was wiped out in hours. And that sudden, violent end is the perfect way to start this list, because the next 6 towns all died slower, but no less completely. Number 6. Layland, the mine disaster that killed 112 men and left families in ruins. Now we move into pure coal country in the New River Gorge. Layland was a classic company town operated by the New River and Pocahontas Consolidated Coal Company. Drift mines opened in the early 1900s. Families moved in for what they hoped would be steady work. Company houses, a store, a school, the whole setup sat 8 miles north of Quinnamont along the railroad. Everything changed forever on the morning of March 2, 1915. At 8:30 a.m., a massive explosion ripped through Layland's No. 3 mine. The blast was so powerful it blew the drift mouth outward and killed a grocery delivery man walking nearby. Of the 164 men working underground that day, 112 died, either instantly or from suffocation by afterdamp. Federal investigators blamed ignited methane gas followed by a coal dust explosion. It was the second mine explosion in Fayette County that month and remains the deadliest in county history. 7 men staggered out right after the blast. Rescue crews poured in. Over the next several days, they recovered bodies and, incredibly, found more survivors. On March 6th, 4 days later, 42 additional miners were rescued a full mile inside the mine. They had barricaded themselves behind a wall they built from mine props and survived by chewing bootlaces and bark to stave off hunger. In total, 53 men lived. The other 112, including the delivery man, did not. Widows lined the streets. Orphans filled the school. The psychological scar on the community never healed. Production limped on for a while, but the heart of Layland was gone. As bigger, consolidated operations took over and cheaper coal came from elsewhere, the town faded. Houses were dismantled or left to rot. The mine closed for good. Today, if you hike into the area, you'll find quiet, overgrown ruins, scattered foundations, and a solemn miner's memorial. A historical marker tells the story. Layland is a brutal reminder of how dangerous early coal mining really was. No modern ventilation, no real safety standards, just men walking into the dark every single shift. One spark, one bad day, and an entire town's future was buried underground. Number 5. Brooklyn, the last coal camp, where everyday artifacts still sit exactly where they were left. Brooklyn lasted longer than most. Opened in the 1890s by the Brooklyn Coal Company and later run by the Scotia Coal and Coke Company, it sat right along the New River. The mine tapped the Sewell seam. High-quality coal moved out on the C&O line. At its height, hundreds of miners and their families lived in company houses perched on the steep hillsides. It was a full-service camp: company store, post office, housing, even coke ovens. One of the very last camps developed in the gorge. But by the early 1950s, the seams were thinning. Old hand-loading methods became too expensive, and automation plus competition from strip mines killed the jobs. The mine shut down for good in 1953. Families left in a hurry. They didn't have time or the heart to pack everything. When the National Park Service later took over the area, they discovered housewares, tools, dishes, and everyday items left exactly where they dropped decades earlier. The South Side Trail now winds right through the old town site. Moss-covered coal blocks still sit where they were dumped. Stone foundations peek through the undergrowth. Beautifully preserved beehive coke oven ruins line parts of the trail. The forest has reclaimed the streets, but the outline of the old camp is unmistakable. Brooklyn feels peaceful now, a favorite for backcountry hikers and campers who want to step back in time. But picture the sound of coal cars rattling past, kids playing in the dirt streets, and the constant rumble of the tipple. It didn't die in fire or explosion, it just slowly bled out when the coal money stopped flowing. That quiet, inevitable decline is what makes so many of these West Virginia abandoned coal towns feel even sadder than the dramatic disasters. Brooklyn shows exactly how the industry quietly walked away and left people holding the bag. Number 4. Nuttallburg, Henry Ford's smokeless coal experiment that still stands as one of the best preserved ruins. Here's the one with the biggest name attached. Nuttallburg was founded in 1873 by English immigrant John Nuttall, right as the C&O Railroad arrived. He opened a mine tapping the Sewell seam that produced some of the best smokeless coal in the region. Low volatile, clean burning, perfect for steelmaking. Houses clung to the steep hillside. A massive conveyor system dropped coal 500 feet straight down to the river tipple. Schools, churches, company store, the full package. In 1920, Henry Ford himself leased the operation for his Fordson Coal Company. Ford wanted complete vertical integration, his own coal to make steel for his Model Ts at the River Rouge plant. He poured money into upgrades, replaced the old wooden conveyor with a modern 1,385-foot steel one, and even shut the mines briefly in 1921 to 1922 to modernize. Ford visited the town once and walked every inch, talking to miners and residents. Under Fordson, Nuttallburg became the first mine in the New River Gorge to adopt the 40-hour work week. For 8 years, it was literally part of the Ford empire. But Ford couldn't control the railroad freight rates, and the economics collapsed. He sold out in 1928. The mine passed through other owners, but national demand shifted. The underground operation finally closed in 1958. The post office had already shut in 1955, and the depot closed in 1962. When people left, they abandoned artifacts that the Park Service has preserved: dishes, tools, everyday items frozen in time. Today, Nuttallburg is one of the best preserved sites in the gorge. The National Park Service owns the entire coal mining complex and town historic district. You can hike the long road through Kenny's Creek Ravine and stand under the towering conveyor ruins, still incredibly intact. Foundations of houses, schools, and churches line the trails. Nuttallburg proves that even Henry Ford's money, ambition, and modern ideas couldn't save a West Virginia coal town once the bigger forces of economics and technology turned against it. Number 3. Sewell, home of the last glowing coke ovens in southern West Virginia. Sewell has one of the longest histories on the list. It started life in the 1790s as Boyer's Ferry, just a simple river crossing on the New River. Coal changed everything. In 1873, the Longdale Iron Company opened the first mine and built 50 beehive coke ovens. By the early 1900s, they had nearly 200 ovens operating, the largest single coke operation in the gorge at the time. Coal came down from surrounding mines on the Mans Creek Railroad, got cooked into coke right on site, and shipped out to steel mills across the country. The ovens kept the town alive longer than most because operators brought in coal from farther away when local seams thinned. They finally went cold in 1956. Some of the very last beehive coke ovens still burning in all of southern West Virginia. The last official resident, a railroad employee, hung on until 1973. Now Sewell sits inside the New River Gorge area, largely absorbed by the forest. Rows of stone coke ovens stand like silent cathedrals, covered in moss and vines. You can walk among them and almost feel the heat that once roared 24/7, lighting up the night sky for decades. Sewell's story is the textbook example of slow decline. Markets shifted, technology advanced, railroads changed. One by one, the jobs vanished. The glowing red ovens that powered America's steel industry for generations are now quiet monuments to an industry that built the nation but left its workers and towns behind. Number 2. Thurmond, the richest, wildest railroad town in the gorge, now down to just 5 residents. Thurmond is probably the most famous on this list, and it earned every bit of that reputation. Founded in 1873 by Captain William D. Thurmond, it became the busiest and most profitable stop on the entire Chesapeake and Ohio line. At its peak in the early 1900s, the depot handled massive coal traffic and up to tens of thousands of passengers a year. The town had hotels, banks, saloons, and a notorious red light district across the river. The 100-room Dun Glen Hotel, sometimes called the Dun Glen, was legendary for gambling, parties, and wild nights. It was known as the Little Monte Carlo of the mountains. A 14-year-long poker game was supposedly played there. Thurmond generated more revenue for the C&O than any other town its size. It was wild, wealthy, and wide open. Then the decline hit hard. The Virginian Railway brought competition. The Great Depression hammered what was left. A major fire in 1922 damaged parts of town, and the Dun Glen Hotel burned to the ground in 1930, a devastating $100,000 loss at the time. Diesel locomotives replaced steam, so trains no longer needed to stop for coal and water. Businesses closed one by one. Families moved away looking for work. Today, Thurmond has a population of exactly 5 people, according to the 2020 census, making it one of the smallest incorporated towns in the nation. The National Park Service owns most of the buildings. The restored depot serves as a visitor center. You can walk the railroad tracks and stand in front of the old bank, the hotel ruins, and empty lots where the engine house once stood. Trains still rumble through, but the town that once thrived on them is almost silent. Thurmond is living proof that even the richest boom towns become West Virginia ghost towns when the industry that built them moves on. And number 1, the most physically demanding and visually stunning, is Kaymoor. Built in 1899 by the Low Moor Iron Company of Virginia and named after James Kay, the man they put in charge, Kaymoor had 2 separate mines and 2 levels of town, Kaymoor Top along the rim and Kaymoor Bottom down by the river. They were connected by a brutal 821-step wooden staircase carved into the gorge wall. At its peak, more than 800 workers and families lived here. Between 1900 and 1962, miners pulled out nearly 17 million tons of the highest quality smokeless coal in the New River field. Houses, a school, company store, coke ovens, the whole operation. Kaymoor 1 kept running until 1962, but the bottom town was mostly abandoned by 1952. A fire in 1960 destroyed much of what remained below. To reach it today, you hike down those same 821 stairs, or take the long trail from the top. What waits is incredible. Rusted mine equipment, stone foundations, old coke ovens, and the remains of the tipple and coal processing plant. The National Park Service has stabilized parts so visitors can safely explore. Vines wrap around machinery. Trees grow straight through old house frames. It feels like the gorge itself decided to swallow what man built. Kaymoor is the ultimate symbol of how fast these towns can disappear once the coal runs out or becomes too expensive. The 821 steps you climb are the same ones miners walked every single day. Standing at the bottom, surrounded by ruins, you understand exactly why these 7 West Virginia towns were left behind.